Hey, I'm Dave Rubin. Welcome to the Rubin Report. I've got Erin Foley with me. I've got Howard Bragman. And, you know, when we started doing this show, I wanted to sort of bring the lighter side of politics, of current events, and mix it up with comedians, personalities, interesting people, and hopefully get a slightly different take on everything going on. Unfortunately, earlier today, there was the terror attack at the Boston Marathon. And I would be remiss if we did a whole week show and didn't talk about it. So I wanted to just get to it a little bit, and we're not going to delve that deep because it's still obviously unfolding. There's going to be a lot of stuff that'll come out in the next month, the next couple weeks. But I felt we had to talk about it a little bit. So let's start with this. Do you guys think it was just a matter of time before there was going to be another attack? I mean, it was actually, if you jump back to 9/11, the last thing we've had on American soil was, 12 years ago. That's a long time. So was this just a time thing? What do you think, Erin?
Well, yeah, I lived in New York during the whole 9/11, and I just remember those months after it thinking, then it was the anthrax, and it just it didn't stop. And I just remember week after week being like, will we ever get a normal week again? You take everything for granted, and then I was just, not to be morbid, but I was just absolutely shocked that we haven't had something, maybe not on that scale, but you just, every week you'd hear they can get into the subway, they can, it's cyber attack, so I think, thankfully it hasn't happened before this, but it's just, it takes you right back to September 11th and, friends, family, and it's just, my sister's a marathon runner. It's so, it just makes you absolutely stomach sick. It's just horrifying. But,
yeah.
It is, in a way, to think that's, the first big thing that's happened since 9/11 is thankfully surprising.
Yeah, what do you think? Do you think it was just a matter of time before something? Things have happened internationally since
This is the
then,
world we live in now, okay? Yeah. if you've been to the Middle East, you've been to Israel, you've been to a lot of European countries, you don't go in a grocery store without getting, magged down and checked for weapons.
Yeah.
And we've been pretty immune in the U.S. We have lots of crazy people with guns who will take you out in movie theaters, but which feels terrorist to me, quite frankly. But,
Well, that would get into the whole definition of terror, which already we know is going to be coming over the next couple of weeks. Yeah.
Well, if this was, it seems that it was some sort of quote-unquote homemade bomb or, something you could have found on the internet. But, people were terrorized and people were dead. And 150 or give or take are injured at this point, 3 dead. That's terror.
Yeah.
And that's the world we have to live in. And I think what we have to understand is there are so many targets of opportunity. We talk about the Oscars and the Academy Awards here, and we say, well, we have to protect that. You can't protect everything. With 25,000 runners, how do you stop? You go into everybody's knapsack, you just can't do it anymore.
Right, and how much liberty do we want to give up for freedom? Because do we want to be having people, security guards go through our bags as we enter the mall and that whole thing? What do you guys think about just the way information has changed since 9/11? Just being on Twitter today, which I was completely glued to, the way we're so intimately involved, where you can see pictures on the fly and read tweets from people that are there. Yeah. So you feel very connected. And then in another way, it shows you how far we are away from people, because there's this very personal thing happening, and you're part of it, but you're not part of it. It's wild if we had some of that stuff 10 years ago, 11 years ago.
Yeah, I remember just trying to get to a landline to call my mother, and try to figure out where both my sisters were in New York City. We're all in New York City trying to figure out, well, all right, I think she's on 60th Street. My elder sister's in Brooklyn. Maybe you had no idea. You didn't even know what part of the city you could cross, But with today, I don't know, for me, it's a wonderful thing because you're getting, it's horrible because you're seeing all of this, but you do feel like, okay, the more knowledge in a crisis situation, the better. Even basically, you were seeing on Twitter today, it's Boston police saying, don't go in this area, go and just tracking victims and tracking loved ones. So I think it's pretty amazing what you can do now with social media.
Yeah. Do you think the social media can actually sort of spread the fear? Years ago, before television or radio, if something happened in one part of the world, people didn't find out about it till, a ship got across an ocean. Now it's like this constantly.
I think the most interesting part is we get a different perspective. We're used to Fox and MSNBC and CNN. You know, and that's the business news, or excuse me, the news perspective that we've gotten.
Yeah.
Now you get different people, and in it you get a lot of innuendo, you get a lot of rumor, you get a lot of stuff that turns out not to be true. But I guess the good news is you get a lot of stuff first and foremost, and you get to hear it. It's just culling through it and knowing how much credence to give a certain thing and how much not. It's, you know, people always go, is Twitter good? Is Facebook good? Is it bad? It's just a fact of life.
It just is. All right, well, obviously this stuff is going to keep, you know, this is going to be the big story for the next couple months. So just one other thing on this. How quickly do you think it's going to be before the blame game starts kicking in? Whether it's that we're blaming the FBI or the CIA, you know, we still don't even, nobody's claiming responsibility. Again, we're doing this Monday night, just a few hours after this attack occurred. But how quickly before we just get into that?
This was pretty unpredictable, okay? Yeah. I mean, even with 9/11, arguably there were certain warnings.
Yeah.
This was pretty, nobody's taking credit for this. There was no, as we know, intelligence buzz on this. I mean, so this feels a little different. It feels almost like it did in Atlanta when the bomb went off during the Olympics there, a little more homegrown.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, when you go back, and I'm sure intel will come out and maybe, of course there'll be a blame game and be like, why didn't you pick up this? Why didn't you pick up that? But the alarming thing about 9/11 was there were so many signs. I mean, when you're dealing with an airline like or a pilot academy that people don't want to learn how to land the plane.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're like, oh, hey, you know what I mean? So it was so alarming when that evidence came out that you were like, how could, you know?
Yeah.
But now we're on a different level where, you know.
You and Condi Rice not close?
Yes. I had to take her off my Facebook page.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just, so this obviously stuff will come out and everyone will, you know, get blamed. But I think honestly, you have to say like in the last 10, 12 years, it seems like there's been so many so many, you know, times where you're like, oh, all right, well that intelligence came in, that was stopped, that was stopped,
and you only got to get it wrong once and you're screwed.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
So either our intelligence is a lot better and it's saved us a bunch of times, or maybe it's not as good as we think it is. But either way, we'll keep talking about this. There's going to be plenty more on it. And all right, now let's get back to the funny stuff. So, Justin Bieber. I've done about 7 of these shows, have not talked about Bieber yet, believe it or not. So let's do it.
And he's pissed, by the way. I just want to say.
He's pissed at me?
Yeah, we're not talking about him.
The guy, I haven't helped him trend on Twitter yet, but we're going to do it right here, right now. So he was in Amsterdam. He was doing a little European tour, and he stopped by the Anne Frank house. I'm sure you guys have all heard this already. He signed the guest book, and I want to get the quote correctly, so I'm going to read it to you. He wrote, "Truly inspiring to be able to come here. Anne was a great girl. Hopefully she would have been a believer." He also tweeted that it was a chill day in Amsterdam that day. Not chilly, chill. It was a cool day. All right, so Justin Bieber, he wants Anne Frank, who died in the Holocaust, everyone knows the story, to be a believer. Is
my favorite part was, she was a great girl.
Right.
A great girl. I mean, here's this kid. Finally, he screwed everything up. The last 2 months have been, you know, a PR nightmare for this kid.
Yeah.
He's finally doing something right. Okay, he's in Amsterdam, he's going to go to and then he screws it up.
Right, he's doing something seemingly selfless and just, you know,
and all his believers are like tweeting, we don't even know who she is anyway, why is everybody upset? And it's like such an opportunity to educate his 387 million Twitter followers.
Yeah, so wait, before I let you jump in on this, Erin, so as the PR guy, do you think there's any chance that this wasn't calculating? Because on one hand, you know...
Nothing he does is calculated. He's a 19-year-old kid who I think is, I look at it as a business. Okay, this is a what, $50, $75 million a year business.
Yeah.
And I've said it before and I'll say it publicly. I don't think he's getting good advice. I think this kid thinks he knows it all, and I think a little humility, a little respect, and I think the people who are running his life, his managers and his publicists, owe him to sort of tell him the way the world works, that dude, you don't know it all at 19.
Humility and respect. Do the kids not have it anymore, Erin Foley?
Well, no one has it. Here's the thing. He's an entourage. Well, first of all, let me back up. Anne was a great girl. That's where
That was worse than the Believer. It
I
really
swear to God,
was.
that's where my head popped off, and I've been trying to put it back all day. An icon, a hero, no, a great girl. That's
right.
what you say to like Selena Gomez when they break up. Like, she was a great girl. Anne Frank.
Right.
Then you think. You see all these reports where he's like, his entourage is like, 40 deep, and he's got guards, and you would assume he is a handler, So when Justin Bieber writes that, my pen cap just flew off. It's totally fine. When he writes that, someone right behind him crosses out a couple of these words instead of hopefully. She would have been a believer. Hopefully, hoped she would have been rescued. Little whiteout.
Yeah.
A little
Great girl,
like just
inspirational story.
Inspiration. Just add some words. I mean, hire a handler.
What the part that I'm kind of fascinated with this is that the people at the Anne Frank house, they actually posted what he wrote on Facebook, and they are backing it with they're not saying that it was.
When's the last time anybody talked about Anne Frank?
So is
okay.
this is just
they're happy for
Yeah.
a little attention right now,
Yeah.
and I think it is calling. The good news is
Yeah.
that it is calling attention to something, and I think last week was the week of remembrance for the Holocaust,
Yeah.
and I think it is important that we don't forget. And my parents, were a generation that lived through that. I grew up after it, certainly, not part. Kids today are very detached. Something that happened last week was ancient history of these kids. So it's really important that we remind people that something this heinous existed in our lifetimes, essentially.
Is that the silver
That's
lining
the only
here?
good, right? That's the only good that he was thinking like Anne Frank's going to be like holed up in the attic with iTunes, like rocking out to Justin Bieber while the Nazis are walking down the street. Like it's so inconceivable. Having a chill day. Yeah, I'm going to a Holocaust remembrance.
And she was wearing a great dress too.
What do you guys make of this thing that now all of our news is couched in celebrity? So you got Bieber and Anne Frank. I mean, I can't even believe I just said that in a sentence. Then you got the White House literally answering questions this week about Jay-Z and Beyonce going to Cuba. We got Dennis Rodman, who just announced he's going back to North Korea. Is this really the only way we can get to young people, by attaching celebrity to every important story?
Yes.
Yeah?
I wrote this piece on HuffPo, and it was called Culture of Crisis, and it's why the news has sort of morphed into this crap that we have now, okay? We've been at war for 10 years. Never in the history of our country would you ever be at war and turn on the evening news or turn a newspaper and the war not be a front page story. You can go through the New York Times, the LA Times, there will be not one article on any given day about the war we're in.
Not only the war, the longest war that America has ever been in. So this is not just some little war.
And it used to be that the media, all these respected news organizations would give you a little meat, a little vegetable. Maybe if you're good, you get a little dessert at the end. Now they realize that more dessert equals better ratings, so you get all dessert now.
Yeah, all dessert.
It's the start, fingers crossed, of his downward spiral meltdown, which we all love to see. At least I do.
Take that, Bieber. Your spiral downward downfall is a coming. All right, let's move on.
You're gonna get gonna get them after you. When those little suckers get mad, they get mad.
No. Hashtag Belieber. I love all of you people. You're wonderful. Keep up the good work. One Direction. You're all fantastic. Everything.
He doesn't mean it. I can give you his home address.
Okay. All right, let's move on. A really fascinating study just came out from the University of Winnipeg that indicates that people who engage in text messaging are more racist and more shallow than people who do not. The study observed 2,300 psychology students for 3 years, and let's take a look at some of the numbers here. Okay, so people that sent 100 text messages per day were 30% less likely to concern themselves with living ethical lives. And 50 text messages or less, you were far more likely to care about living principled lives. So this is a pretty obvious thing here. You text, you don't care, about anybody. Erin, how often do you text? We've texted. You're not an over-texter, just the right amount, I think.
I text 3,000 text messages a day, and I only like white people. No, this is the most ridiculous story I think
each
I've
one
ever.
count as a text? I mean, if you ask me a question, I respond, you
Yeah.
respond,
Yeah.
those are texts?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
each one is one text. Yeah.
First of all, does Winnipeg have any other races? It's just cold
right.
white people
Yeah.
texting about people they've probably never seen.
This was not the right university.
and
There's
It's
an
also-
Eskimo there. There's an
Okay.
Inuit there. Just
So
stop
maybe
it.
they're anti-Inuit, but it's also college kids leading ethical lives. No one should lead an ethical life in their 20s.
Yeah.
Come on, they should
How'd
be
you
ripping
answer
it
that
up.
question? Yes.
Is
I wrote boo.
Is this just because young people?
No, you're talking outrageous numbers. People do 100 text messages a day are not living their life. They are not in the moment. They're living a virtual life on their phone that has
But
nothing to do with...
isn't everyone doing that? I mean, we can say that, but isn't that what the kids are all doing?
A lot
I
of
mean, they're
kids are
tweeting
doing
and
it.
texting all day.
It drives me crazy that you're at some event or you're at some party,
Yeah.
and my nephew's perfect example. They're in the corner texting somebody, and it's like, put your phone down
it's the
and
absolute
just
worst.
be in the moment.
Yeah.
Now we know that everyone that has their phone on texting are horrible racists, along with absolutely being so
Right.
rude.
Before
they're
you-
rude and they're racist.
Right. Before you just thought they didn't want to
Yeah.
be
And they
with
don't
you.
care about
Yeah.
people, and they
Yeah.
just don't care.
They have no manners and they hate Asian Americans.
Yeah. I didn't see
And
that
they're like,
study.
I don't care if I run over people that are driving because they're probably not white people,
Yeah.
so it's okay.
Yes.
Do you
No,
think
we
some of this though has to do with the technology of it, because you're literally disconnecting from the actual room that you're in? As you said, you're in the phone and not
Yeah.
surrounded with people, so you're more callous. You say things on text or in an email that you would never say to someone to their face, right? Don't you do that all the time? It's much easier to be cold or mean in a text.
Yeah, I mean, it's
You were
just
pulling
it's
a no
so
comment there,
it's so it's just absolutely the whole study I think is absolutely just so ridiculous to me that you can get like racial profiling from people that are just like on their texts in Winnipeg. I don't know. I think I'm going to need a couple other studies to
You want
back
some
this
more
up.
numbers.
It just
I hate
seems-
gingers.
it
I hate
seems-
gingers. That's
it
what they hate in
just
Winnipeg.
Yeah, no redheads
Yeah.
for Howard.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then
No, I think some of them are cute. It's okay.
No, you
Yeah.
can get a lot. You can get away with a lot more in text, and I can see this
You
notion
can.
of.
I always tell people, don't put it in writing. You're going to
Ever.
get nailed for
Oh, that's
text.
funny. So on one hand, you can say a lot worse things because it's easier than looking someone in the eye and saying something bad to them. But on the other hand, you're right. You're leaving that digital footprint,
Yeah.
thus which will
Exactly.
create all kinds of other problems.
General Petraeus, hello.
Yeah. So do you tell all your clients clear off the digital space? Is that
I had one of my clients showing me these hot nude pictures of her new boyfriend. I said, that's really hot. No, delete it.
But nothing's ever truly deleted, is it?
Nothing is ever truly deleted. Every keystroke is recorded. As I tell my clients, if the head of the CIA can't keep his computer a secret, you can't keep yours a secret.
Did he really try to keep it? He had like
Yes,
a
you know
Gmail
what he
account.
did?
Yeah.
No, but you
Why
know what he did? You know what he did?
Yeah.
They had a Gmail account, but they never sent emails. They would write a draft.
In
And
code.
put it, no, they would write a draft and put it in the draft folder, and they thought, well, we're never sending it, so there's no trail. Wrong.
And how
Yeah.
this man is responsible for the safety of the country. He's like, I'll put some drafts in Gmail. Like it's like so ridiculous.
Right, there's got to be
me.
something more secure than Gmail. I can feel
A
them reading.
10-year-old kid knows how to get more like secure than a draft in Gmail.
No, I've heard a lot of interesting ways that people do it.
Yeah.
I heard of a crime. I heard of a crime that was broken, this big embezzlement scheme, and two guys were communicating through Manhunt, which is a gay hookup site,
Right.
and they would send messages there, and they got
Wow.
caught by law enforcement.
Because clearly gay hookup sites are a lot more secure than Gmail. Remember that. Okay, let's move on. But we're gonna stick to some of this digital privacy stuff. So Google is launching a new service called Inactive Account Manager. And this is to protect your digital self, which in some ways now in 2013 is more important than your real organic self. Basically, if you die, they're going to set up a system now that will allow you to keep your digital properties online for 3, 6, 9 months, a year. You'll be able to have it all deleted if you want, or you can pass it along to another person who then can manage your living digital will, I guess we can call it. Does this seem crazy? We're so obsessed with this stuff in our lives, now we're going to be obsessed with it in our deaths.
The best sentence was, we hope that this new feature will enable you to plan your digital afterlife in a way that protects you. I'm like, digital afterlife? Like, you're just dead, and then you're like, I'm gonna keep going on this.
Tweeting from the coffin, they're gonna get to your Twitter account.
Yeah, well, I assure you that my tombstone is gonna be in 140 characters or less. Because it's,
there you go.
Yeah, I mean, is this just completely crazy, though? We're so obsessed with all this stuff, and now it's gonna continue.
I keep getting birthdays from dead people on Facebook.
You're still getting them?
Yeah. You know, because somebody dies and their account will live forever. But I mean, I'm involved with Reputation.com, an online reputation management company, and one of the programs we have that's a very challenging program, and I don't know how Google will get over this, is how many Dave Rubins are there in the world? There's, probably hundreds.
There's a bunch of them. This guy who's got DaveRubin.com, I've been trying to get it from him for a long time.
I hate him.
We'll talk after the show. Maybe.
But no, I'm telling you, and it's like, so how do we get the right Dave Rubin died, and then they're going to kill off the wrong Dave Rubin? But I always tell people, information that's online, it's like herpes, only it's going to live longer than you do. Okay, it really does. It exists. There is no statute of limitations for online information.
Yeah.
It's necessary though. When you think about it, if I kick the bucket tomorrow, I want all my online. I don't want anyone checking my Gmail.
So do you want it all shut down?
I want it to be like, this Gmail will self-destruct in 5, 4. Clear everything. I don't want to be.
You have like some airline miles from a credit card that you still want to use that you access.
No, you're dead. You're dead.
No.
Well, what if you want to give it to your nephew?
Can you even do that if you're alive? Are you allowed to transfer those? That's a whole other topic. But what about your public stuff? So I can understand your email you want shut down because that's your private communication.
I'm planning to get over it when I die. Okay. I'm planning to let go when I die.
You're letting it all go.
I'm letting it go.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this because
I don't want anyone posting on my Facebook page like still missing Erin, and I'm just like. It's just creepy. It's creepy to me. I want it wiped out.
But in a weird way, wouldn't you want the people who love Erin Foley to have a space to come to where they can all reminisce about your funny jokes?
Somebody
dies, is a cemetery overrated?
People don't want to visit the cemetery.
They don't actually get in their car and do anything.
When somebody dies, though, I see on Facebook, it's really kind of a place to go. Here's the memorial, and it's here, and but that's assuming that somebody in your family has your secret password to get in.
So speaking of secret passwords, what I find interesting,
and I'm not giving you my social security.
What I find interesting about this is that one of the things they say is you can give someone can be like a custodian of all of your digital assets. But God only knows what would happen. People get into financial problems 3 years later. Maybe they want to sell your digital assets. I mean, it just opens up this endless Pandora's box of
It also
control.
opens up, if you have a job where you're overseeing the inactive account manager, that your job title could be Director of Digital Death.
DDD.
And that would be hilarious.
You're a tri-delt.
Every morning you're like, go to the office, what are you, Director of Digital Death?
Oh, I'm going to read the obituaries today.
Yeah. All right, well.
I wonder if he had any nice shoes. What size shoes do
Is that an apartment? New York City apartment open?
Director of Digital Death. Take that with you for this segment.
Dr.
All right, let's move on. Wow, we did 3 segments and we didn't talk about the gays. That's crazy because the gays are in the news every day, nonstop. They are multiplying like gremlins in water.
No, we can't multiply. We have to recruit. Don't you know?
We recruit through water, much like gremlins. So this is actually a positive story. We've had like a burst of positive things happening with the gays lately. The Mormon Church, which was one of the main backers behind Prop 8, the bad side of Prop 8, they donated about $20 million to stop gay people from being married in California. And then, of course, they're a tax-exempt organization and that whole thing. But they are announcing now that they're slowly pulling back from all the anti-gay rhetoric. this seems like a great thing to me. Do you think this is possibly something that they're changing their beliefs? Or is this all like political calculation? We've lost the war, we may as well get on the crazy gay train.
Numbers game. You have people in the seats. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? They're down like 5-10% of their flock or whatever they call it. And then they're like, we got to soften our stance. We got to soften. I'm like, we're like just like these degenerate animals. They're like, you know, and now we can be petted. The whole thing, I mean, it's good, right? Because anything where you have the Mormon church that has just went above and beyond the call of duty to rip my happiness away. And now they're just like, oh, my bad. Yeah, you guys, you know, we're not going to pump all this money in. But I like how they described, they said, although the LDS's prophet hasn't described a holy revelation directing a revision in the church doctrine.
Yeah.
Like one day they're just like, yes, I saw the gays coming out under the rocks and we should be nice to them. Like, what? It's just ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous, but positive, I guess.
Howard, I sense some cynicism over there. What do you think?
No, I worked on a book. I worked on a book last year called The Mormonization of America, and it was by a very respected author who wrote about Mormon church, and actually they're one of the fastest growing of the major religions.
I think they're the fastest growing.
And you know, unlike the Republican Party, the Mormons see the writing on the wall, okay? And my friend Dustin Lance Black, who still considers himself a Mormon and is in contact with the church, sort of told me, you know, last year that, you know, they were changing their views. And, you know, while some people might hold specific beliefs, as a church policy, they saw no advantage to pushing that anymore. They know where society's going. And I do think it's a political calculation, but our own people, the Jewish people, the conservative reform sects have embraced gay marriage and gay relationships. The Orthodox, not so much.
So do you think it matters then? I guess you're saying it doesn't matter whether they really believe it or they're just coming along for the ride because they see the anti-gay thing as a sinking ship. So it really doesn't matter, right?
Remember Sex in the City?
I do.
Of course you do.
Yes.
Duh.
Yes.
And how she tried to convert, you know, and she kept going to the rabbi with wine, and he's like, I don't want you. Not the Mormons.
It's not.
You knock on the door, they're knocking on your door. You don't have to knock on you know. And the Mormon belief is, we're going to bring you in, and even if you don't know the teachings, we're going to offer you that sense of community. And in a world where probably we don't live in the same city with our parents anymore, and people feel a little lost and lonely, divorce rates are up, etc. Church is important in a lot of ways, and you know, they've done a lot of heinous things, but there are good things they do, and they do bring a sense of community and fellowship to people, and that's a good thing in a lot of ways. And you can't, and if they're less judgmental, that's a good thing.
No, it's a good thing.
Do you think that on this crazy road to equality that we seem to be on, that there's a little danger in sort of bending all the religions to us in a way? You know what I mean? If the Mormons are coming along and, you know, they're saying maybe this Pope will be a little bit better. But is there a weird like acceptance that gays are trying to get that maybe is not necessary? Like it should just be about the rights of equality, the true, you know, given rights by the government, and not making the religions have to dig us.
Yeah, well, it's so loaded because when you're trying to, it's been so hard to cross the bridge of like being gay and then being religious, because all the examples of just like you can be one or the other, you know, and which is really sad because there's something wonderful about a community. I was raised Catholic, you know, about going to the church, and all my parents' friends that they met in their church. So there's really this wonderful thing. So for me, it's been very difficult to, okay, you feel like you have to pick. So anything where there is a bending, where gay people that still have their faith, that still want to be Catholic, want to be Mormon, where they can be accepted in any way, even if it's a little bit, I mean, it's just disgusting that it isn't a lot, like that we're even talking about this. But since it was so polarizing before, that if there can be some sort of a middle ground, I think that's a huge positive step.
Yeah, Howard, as the PR guy here, so with all this stuff that has moved incredibly quickly with the gays, right? I mean, the last 2 months already. I mean, everything, it's moving so fast. Is there any advice that you would give to the gays the gays, as everyone calls them, to really just keep this momentum going? I mean, are we just in a little holding pattern now while the Supreme Court waits to make their decision?
I think it's bigger than all of us. I think this issue is not going away. The older generation has lit a fuse in the younger generation, and they are all about equality. Opposition to anything having to do with gay rights will all be gone in 20 years because they'll all be dead. The people who oppose it. Yeah. It's purely generational. Young people to 2 to 1. 60, 70% of young people don't do it. They don't care. Or as I like to say, could you ever watch Will and Grace and Modern Family and be scared of a gay person? Really? Right. Could you?
Right.
Could you?
You might think that they're
look at that horrible gay person.
Exactly.
Yes, they're gonna do horrible things to me. What are they gonna do to you? Wear a funny hat?
Exactly.
You just want to get to a point where you don't have to talk about this. Like it's just like it's a non-issue. You just don't want to have to keep beating your head against the wall and be like, no, we're normal. You just feel like every time you meet somebody, you're like, I don't
normal. Exactly. Ultimately, I think that's what it really comes down to. We just want to be as boring and simple and average as you guys. Let us have that. Final thought.
When I used to do PR for the Gay Pride Parade in West Hollywood, I used to take the media, they'd want to show the dykes on bikes and the drag queens and the guys in Speedos, and I'd take them to the kitchen cabinet refinishing booth. I go, look, we're boring just like you.
That's all we want. We just want an opportunity to show you that.
To refinish our kitchens.
Refinish our kitchens. All right, here we go. Airlines. Everyone has had it. It's not just you. A new study, the Airline Quality Rankings by Wichita State University and Purdue University. Erin, I know those are two of your favorite universities.
Places that nobody goes.
Nobody goes. How did the other study we used was from Winnipeg, and these two random, but these are legitimate studies according to the paper.
Could it be Atlanta or Chicago,
next week I'm gonna,
people go.
Yeah, next week I'll get something from Harvard or something. Anyway, complaints about the airlines are literally, they're going through the roof. Not literally, figuratively, they're going through the roof. Complaints have gone up about 20%. Let's look at the breakdown of the airline rankings. And some of this seems pretty obvious, and then some of this I think is kind of surprising. So in terms of quality, the best, let's just look at the top 5. It's Virgin, America, JetBlue, AirTran, Delta, Hawaiian, and then at the bottom it's American, American Eagle, SkyWest, ExpressJet, United. I mean, is there anything else that we pay so much money for that we all do? Everyone in the country flies. We all pay a ton of money for it and get less of a pleasant return. Is there anything like that?
Well, when have people been bragging about airline travel?
I think in the back of the day, no?
It just seems like, well, I mean, I literally travel for comedy probably every weekend, every other weekend. I'm on a plane, and it just seems like they're all about the same. I mean, Virgin America and JetBlue, the reason why everyone brags about them is because you feel like the plane has been built in the last couple of years. And there's like a TV and it feels, there's dance music when you're bored. Yeah.
How about the lighting on those Virgin flights? It's like going into a club, isn't it?
It is. It's total club, and it's like when you're bored.
Yeah.
And
in the bong room. I love the bong room.
Oh my God. The amount of weed in those bathrooms.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just feels like, honestly, the problem I have is not the airlines, it's the people on the plane.
Exactly.
They're taking their shoes off and their sweaty, gross feet are on the chairs, and this one family, they queued up Jungle Book for their kids. No headsets, just so now we're watching Jungle Book. I don't know, it just seems like the humanity on the plane is lowering. The airlines are all kind of equal.
Did you text that? Because that's kind of racist that you didn't like Jungle Book.
You're getting a lot of trouble. Do you think that's part of the thing, though, that because we're not often locked in with a group of people for 5 hours, so now if you're sitting there and you can't, do all your texting and all that you're really concentrated on this group of people around you, and it makes you a little nuts.
Well, I represented Stephen Slater, the JetBlue flight attendant. He was my client.
Love that man.
Can you tell people what he did again real quick?
Stephen Slater was the guy on JetBlue, and he was mad as hell, and he wasn't going to take it. And
flight attendant. He was a flight attendant.
And some passenger was mad, and he picked up the microphone and said, "You're fabulous," I think, something like that, and opened the door, pulled the slide, and grabbed a beer and left the airplane.
It's the greatest work story of all time.
But here's
the gayest escape ever.
We were the gayest escape ever. But what you got to understand is, it was not about Steven Slater. It was about the situation that was set up. It was an early morning flight. I think the flight left at 6 or 7 in the morning. So everybody's sleep deprived. Everybody's exhausted. Everybody gets to the airport, and you paid $118, or you paid $349, and the person next to you paid $118, and so you're mad because you found out that they didn't. Oh, you paid $300. I only paid $118. You're like, what? And then you pack your bags, and they go, it's $25. So you go, screw that, I'll carry it on. And in the carry-ons, the overheads
Nothing
are too
fits.
small, so they're doing, they just create this system where you cannot win, where nobody can win, and it's about profits. It's about these mega businesses that are so big they're hard to do profitable. Gasoline goes up 2 cents a gallon, and it costs them $12 billion. And I'm sorry, my pet peeve, the food.
Yeah.
It's like, I fly a lot. I fly at least twice a month, at Transcon once a month. And it's like, who conceives of this?
Of the crazy,
crap?
these odd combinations of
Crap
pastrami
that they
and
give you. It's just like, can I just have like a salad with a little chicken on it? Could I just have something simple? And they give you something that's so greasy or so spicy or so, it's just, and everything has red peppers. I hate red peppers. I burped them for 7 years. Okay?
No more red peppers, people. Howard hates red peppers.
At the end of the day, though, I mean, you are waking up in LA and landing in New York, and so you still have to be positive in some way.
Right.
I mean, you can still get across the globe in like 8 hours.
You do
know
know
what I
there's
mean?
other places people can fly.
It's pretty. I mean, it's just.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, there's Europe. Yeah. No, I mean, it's always going to be something. I like their positive remarks is we're sort of landing on time, and the bags get to you, and I'm like, again, because no one's checking them. They are literally shoving their bags in the overhead, and it's just you got to drink. You sit down in your chair, get a cocktail, slip a Vicodin or whatever, take the next 6 hours off.
Yeah, is this one of these things that's just so systemic, like from the whole experience, from the TSA? I mean, if you go to JFK, one of the biggest airports in the world, just everything there is so run down. The people barely seem like they're paying attention.
Go to Miami,
they send you, no, exactly.
You think you're in Colombia.
No.
It's like, excuse me, Colombians, but
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend the cartel.
No.
But it is like the most third world airport. If you get your luggage, they've rifled through it,
Yeah. But is that the thing, that it's just so systemic at all levels, from the TSA to the planes themselves that are falling apart? I was on American a month ago. I mean, literally the hand thing was like falling apart.
No,
is it just like everything? There's just nothing can be done.
Right,
it's such a cluster.
I was on an airline, and like the seat didn't go back and this didn't do it, and she's like, I'm really sorry. It's like, I'll live with this. I'm concerned what in the engine you didn't fix, okay?
Yeah, exactly. Right, the seat is one thing. Well, I guess what we learned here is that Virgin, if you would like to sponsor the Rubin Report,
It is.
there's contact info right below. And speaking of sponsoring the Rubin Report, bonobos.com is the official outfitter of the Rubin Report. And if you want this beautiful checkered turquoise and white shirt, I want to put you in it. Go to bonobos.com, enter code TRR20 for 20% off. And let's get to the last
Does it come
story.
with a really long sleeve? So,
Oh yeah, we got long. This is a
37.
slim fit we got right here, but you can get a
I don't
long.
think that's.
I will get you in something. It will be beautiful. All right, here we go. Final story. Cell phone contracts. They may be a thing of the past. We've been doing a lot of complaining about things, the internet and airlines. Now we're going to talk cell phones. This one might be a positive story here. The CEO of Verizon, Lowell McAdam, is saying he's going to consider killing cell phone contracts if, quote, consumers demand it. T-Mobile is dropping contracts now. People can just pay for a month and get out. And the New York Times they broke down the numbers, and I thought this was incredible. If you were to go with T-Mobile with a comparable plan on Verizon, but instead of Verizon, you went with T-Mobile, over 2 years, you could save about $960. So finally, these small groups, we got 4 companies, let's say, that run everything. They're starting to do things different, and it might work to our advantage. How do you feel about the cell phone and freedom? Why are we locked into these contracts?
I didn't know T-Mobile was still in business, so when I read that article,
You have that really big cell phone, don't you? The one that's like the size of a purse.
I was like, when people say I have T-Mobile, I'm like, do you have like the Reynolds wrap around the eaters on the TV?
Yeah,
It just
the
didn't even
Zach
realize.
Morris giant.
Yeah. I don't know. We're getting robbed. It's like, and then it's like a 2-year contract, then your phone breaks down inevitably. And like 2 months before the contract, you come in and like, the phone's in 3 parts and they're like, well, if you sign a new contract, you can get 7 new phones. And you're just like, oh, it's just handcuffed. It's absolutely ridiculous. But you're so dependent on it. It's just, I literally went to a comedy club.
When you text 100 racist
comments
a day,
I need to text people like I hate. But I literally, I was going to a comedy club and I forgot my phone. And it felt like the end of the world. I was just like, this is insane.
I don't know
you're
my
just
jokes.
so
I can't steal anybody's act.
I was like the map. I didn't know where I was. It literally felt like I was like, oh my God, this is. I would rather not have my wallet or like have it makes you crazy and you realize how dependent you are on it, and they have you. They have you in the palm of their hand.
Even the fact that now we know who's calling us. You remember, it was only about 10 years ago that you would pick up a phone in a house and not know who was on the other end.
Yeah.
Now, you would never do that on your cell phone. Would you ever pick up a random
call if they don't?
You have them all blocked, but you would never pick up why would I ever pick up? This thing could blow up.
Sometimes I roll the dice and I answer it, and then I'm like, oh.
Nothing ever good, yeah.
Why?
Has anything ever good come out of a random number that's calling you? No, nothing.
Well, I don't know about you boys on Manhunt, but I don't know how that works. But yeah, no, nothing for me personally has ever come out of.
I switched cell phones last week, carriers, because I moved to a new part of LA.
Okay.
And I had one bar, and I could not get cell phone service at my new home.
How many bars do you have now?
It's like 4 or 5. It's like a beautiful thing.
Do you want to tell us who you switched to? Are you
I
feeling
switched
good
to
about it?
AT&T, and
you're getting better.
And you're getting better.
I know.
That's never been said before, ever.
No, I'm getting, and it's like, wow, I was with Sprint, and they charged me $350 to leave, so I will trash them.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm really content. I'm getting service in all these, well, there's a couple dead spots, but everybody, I'm getting so much better service than I had. And like, while people were working on my new house, I'd go, who's your cell phone carrier? How many bars do you have? And AT&T won. You know, we did the test, and it's kind of crappy. I used to live in the hills, and I used to live near this hill, and there were cell phone towers at the top, and they wanted to put a new tower up. And one of these neighbors was going around saying, sign a petition so they don't put a cell phone tower up. And everybody's like, are you crazy? What is wrong with you? I want one in my backyard.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
It's really like pathetic though. That's like I know I'm totally attached, and we were literally like, we'll be in an area and it's like, how many bars do you like? This is our conversation now. Like, this is what we talk about.
We've started the show by talking about texting, and we're ending it talking about cell phones.
Yeah.
But really, these contracts. I mean, can you think of anything else that we're held hostage the way we are with these cell phone contracts?
well, you started by talking about terrorists, and you're ending by talking about terrorists.
Oh, there you go. Exactly. So, no, but really, is there anything else that do you pay out 2 years of anything else that you do in your day-to-day operation?
I like to say I've reached a level with a mortgage, but I haven't been, not quite there yet.
Yeah.
When you work for a stand-up comedy nonprofit company.
But you know what? T-Mobile will change the business. If Verizon falls, then it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
It's like the
Good for
airline
T-Mobile.
business, and then they will start charging you per text because they realize they're not making any money on cell phones anymore.
And then I won't have to be racist.
Oh, you can't
full
help
circle,
it.
full circle.
You can't help it.
This show absolutely came around full circle. I want to thank Erin Foley and Howard Bragman. I'm going to let you guys do a little pimping of yourselves. Erin Foley, where can they find you?
You can find me on erinkfoley.com. I have a new sports podcast because there's not enough
sports podcast.
A podcast.
A podcast.
There are not enough comedians doing podcasts, so it's called Sports Without Balls. Me and Rebecca Corey.
Nice.
Talking about sports.
So it's lesbians talking about sports?
She is a straight lady.
Straight?
Yes.
A straight girl talking sports?
Yes. She's talking about how much she wants to bang the players, and I do the stats.
Howard, where can everybody find you?
Well, anywhere. It's very easy. At Howard Bragman on Twitter. You can go to howardbragman.com, reputation.com, and if you go to YouTube, you can go to my show Gwishoes, do a little search on YouTube for Gwishoes, and catch the latest episode of Gwis TV. Gwishoes.
We will put it all right down below me right there. I thank you guys for watching, and we'll do this again next week. Why not?